to try and record this so that other people can just watch, and then I'll create short notes afterwards. You guys should create like some short notes if there's something specifically you find interesting, or something you think is important, but I will do my best to create a list after this is done, and then there'll always be a VOD afterwards, assuming it doesn't like start like lagging or being really stupid. Okay. I'll just go live on Discord so you guys can see. Let's close all of those. Okay, jump back here. You guys in? Can you see?
Yeah. I'll join in a second.
Okay.
I'm just finishing this thing I'm doing.
Sure.
I definitely should have charged that. I should have just stayed there. I was going for a run, I just completely whiffed.
Alright, well, let's start with the comp breakdown. So, they're running Hanzo Junk. Okay, so what, in our triangle of Brawl, Poke, Dive, what does that fall under?
Poke.
Poke, yeah. Tanks are very brawly, but their DPS are poke heavy, right? Um, Typically, Dive will be poke, right? But obviously, this is Control Center, so we're not really going to play Dive, right? But there's a specific reason why Brawl is still played versus like weird like poke comps on this map. Can you think of why that is?
Because of White Room?
Yeah, what about White Room?
You could close the distance very easily.
Yeah, so the rotations are very short and very quick, so you can get on top of them easily. Right? Poke will do well if it's allowed to just control all the space on the map and just poke you at distance. But we change that in Brawl by taking smart rotations and limiting the poke, or being able to get on top of them very quickly. Cool. So, if we looking at our comp, besides rotations, what abilities and how should we like rotate these abilities to push in and close this gap? What do you guys think?
We should throw a Risa shield ahead of everyone else, and then use that to close the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time they break the Orisa shield, we'll be there and we can brawl them.
Yeah, it's one resource. Yeah, well, there's lots of different ways that we can do it in this comp. In any kind of current brawl or any brawl that's like played at all, there's really strong gap closers. So whether that's May and Wall, whether that's Amp, you'll see. So the one of the tanks always has great gap closer. So Diva, um, Sig are the main ones. Orisa Ryan is a little more difficult because you have to alternate your shields properly, and Orisa has that cooldown. But you also have pull. The Ryan Zarya one is a bit different. It's like very like high power spike when you have bubbles, and then you're uh, less. You're quite less. You are way less stronger than you would be. Whereas Sig, Diva, Orisa give you more consistency, right?
Hello.
Hey,
Hey,
Uh, sorry, I was finishing up the homework, but I gotta set up my PC.
it's all good. It's recorded, so
Alright, cool.
or it is for now. We'll see how it goes. Um, what was he saying? Yeah. So when we're playing against, as soon as we recognize that they're running like a poke comp or something that has heavy poke, and we just want to get in and brawl it, we need to understand like, okay, what's the fastest rotation we can do to get on top of them, or what rotation is the best for um, just like cutting off their spam and limiting that, and what resources do we have to use to actually make that distance. Okay, so I would probably say in our comp, there's obviously like we can just like punch TP engage with our DPS, but if we want to get our tanks on top of them, we're probably gonna do something like the Orisa shield forward, right? So we need to make sure that Tube and Beach are alternating their shields and their fortify, so we're not like stacking them too much, so we can use the most efficient way of taking space. We're probably going to amp into them as well, and to be extra safe, we could also throw a healing orb to sustain our engage in the rotation, but also like once we're on top of them, right? So throwing healing orb with an engage is a very popular thing to do in a sort of like a brawl matchup. Unless you're using damage orb to set up a very specific play, like you have a Sig ult or you have like a Reaper ult and you want to like chip them down a little bit before actually going in. Um, but Mora heal orb is very common when you are in a rotation or you're going to get spammed for whatever reason. Okay, so we want to find the best rotation, quickest, take the less poke, the least poke, and use specific resources to close the gap as quickly as possible. We want to limit those resources in rotation, right? Which is why it's super important that we don't get spammed. So that way we have the most resources when we actually get to the fight. Um, but getting to the fight is more important than having everything. So if you overlap things a little bit, it is okay. But as you get better with rotations and these sorts of things, you want to minimize the amount of resources you have to use. You want to optimize them. Okay, does that make sense?
yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
Oh no. Oh no. We're about to fall.
Also try to do a little more like micro stuff because I don't want to stick like whole like. I want to give you guys like team macro stuff so you can think about it like in broad context and not just like a specific map or something. But I also want to make sure that I'm giving you guys like micro and like map specific stuff. So if you have something, just call me out on it. Okay.
Notice he zooms into me fucking misplaying.
Okay.
Oh shit.
I actually really like.
Oh fuck. Sorry.
It's fine. Um, Abyss, I believe you came over here and threw an orb in, like from this angle.
Mhm.
Yeah. We also could have had like our Doomfist come from this angle. That would have been very good. Um, but that's like in a brawl matchup, like that's really good. Um, in when May was played, sometimes you'd see May go main. I'm just gonna mute him.
I'll mute myself. Don't worry.
You're good. Sometimes you'd see May go right side. That way they could get this wall off, and that's more consistent, more reliable than like everyone going white room and just whoever gets the wall off first wins sort of thing, right?
Right.
So having like this sort of like off angle, this little like separation, is really actually quite interesting. Um, and we could do that with like our Moira and our Doomfist to make their engages actually easier and to be more dangerous. It's a little harder versus the Hanzo because Hanzo's taking this off angle, right?
So like maybe like Doomfist Moira go on the stairs. I should be back where Tube is, and
Mhm.
then we kind of like pull them directly into, what would be like a guaranteed kill right here.
Yeah,
You know,
like right
where
there.
we look and just
Yeah.
easy pull.
Hmm. Yeah. That's really
Might be a little
strong.
difficult into Junkrat though too.
Yeah. In this matchup, it's really awkward. But in a brawl
Anything
matchup,
just
it's very
into
powerful.
Junkrat is just awkward in general because of
Yeah.
fucking spams.
Yeah. And what you guys should be trying to do at this point is you should be trying to like stuff them in here, which I think is what you end up kind of doing. But you also need to watch this Hanzo, right? So because of the fact that we're running Sig Rhine, it's kind of a shitty matchup for us. If we were running
Risa Ryan?
Sig, yeah, Arisa Rhine, sorry.
No, it's okay.
If we were running like Arisa Sig or we were running like uh, Diva Rhine or some other variant of the tanks, this wouldn't be as big of a problem because we can use a resource. So say we're running Sigarus, right? Sig cuts off this angle, and then the Hanzo is forced to rotate back into here, which then our Orisa is soaking up that damage, right? So we were controlling the off angle, but it's harder with the Orisa Rhine because Rhine has to either hold shield, right? And in that case, he's not swinging, which is what we want, right? Or we have to commit Orisa shield, which is a long resource that we don't want to have to use for solely that purpose because Hanzo can just step forward through it, or step around it, jump over it, whatever. It's not um, as mobile, I guess. You can't reposition it as well as Sig Shield or like Defense Matrix, basically, right? So the matchup is really shitty for us. Um, so at this point, if we can force the Hanzo into the stairway, that's gonna be better for us. How we would do that is by sending like our Reaper or our Doom over here, right? So having like beat your own run, yeah. So having beat you just position here, which is pretty standard, like on this corner to try to shove them back in here, while also providing a little bit of cover from that Hanzo. And we would basically put, um, like we could do like Doom Lucio on him or something, on the Hanzo or something, right? Because if we're holding, if we've already got them stuffed into the stairways, we don't need the speed boost as much. So it'd be more acceptable for Chance to go off and challenge this Hanzo, but we'd want him to do it with someone else.
Okay.
Right. We won't want him doing like a 1v1 because he's very close to his team and they can easily rotate to help him, or he can rotate back to them, right? Which is why we would need like two people to go or one person plus some other resources. So
Yeah, what one person maybe like a pull
yeah, like a pull,
Doom and
yeah, like a pull punch onto him, yeah, or something like that, or get Reaper behind him. But yeah, we need to shove them into the stairs and cut off this angle as much as possible. Right? We want the Hanzo and Junk basically shooting at the same angle so that we're getting the max value from our shields, and they're not able to just shoot around them. But in the end, this is a very bad matchup for us. How did that Junk not die? What the hell? Must got bubbled or some shit. Yeah. Or getting like a Rista shield like on this corner so it's covering both a little bit, and then using Rhine to push in. But this is the classic example of why it's super important that Beach and Tube are communicating your resources,
yeah.
right? Like I've been harping on that for a little while, and I keep telling you guys. Um, but this is a classic example of why it's important.
I forget. Did Tube say that he couldn't make it?
I don't know. I think I left voice at this point because I had two teams playing. Um, so I can't remember what you guys said.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like to the VOD of you,
Mm,
because
I'm
like
pretty sure he
I
said he
remember
couldn't make it.
Zebra said he couldn't make it, but I don't remember what Tube said.
oh. Oh. I don't know. I can't remember.
He's online too. I just probably couldn't link or something. You forgot.
Also, does anyone speak like Mandarin or whatever the fuck this is?
I do not.
Nope. That's really random.
Yeah, I know, right? Okay. Yeah. So the reason that spam comps are really powerful, in my opinion, on control maps, not just control center, but just like control maps in general, is because how they're circular and how many angles you have access to. So if one side has access to 2 or 3 angles, then that means there's 4 to 6 angles once you have the point, right? So if you guys push in main, then there's the coast angle, there's white room, there's just the back, and there's main, there's all these like little in between things. There's the high ground, right? You can get spammed like through the stairs, right? So the team that has control has access to more angles than they would on other map types, right? So it's really important that when you guys are pathing, that you try to figure out which path is going to limit the angles that you can be exposed to when playing against a poke comp, right? Okay. So hmm, yeah, it's fucking pain in the ass on this map because it's like a perfect circle. Um, that way, that way. Okay. So probably the best thing that you guys could do is have a core do more of a wraparound rotation, and then have another group, so like say Reaper, look for someone who is rotating. So for example, if you stick Reaper out here, okay, so on coast, and then you guys decide to rotate through White Room, right, and then maybe you wrap around to their side, that's gonna force them to their tanks are gonna match you here, right? But their Hans or their Junk is probably gonna play over here, or they're gonna play like above you or back over here, right? Or maybe their supports are playing back here, right? And now your Reaper is sitting over here in position to actually get a flank off without getting pressured, right? So some sort of rotation like that is probably your best case. So you're forcing them to rotate into a position that's going to be advantageous for you. Um, it's hard because those are long rotations, and you need to not get picked. So you need to be super disciplined on rotations like that. But that's probably something you guys should think about, um, or look into. At least we'll try to practice them a little bit. But they're not at the level you guys are playing. It's not gonna be super common that you'll need to use them, to be honest. Um, but it is something that we can do if we're playing against like a weird matchup that we need to do like a heavy rotation to get something in our favor. Okay, and that can be done on any map type. They're just easier to pull off on Koth, I think. I want to look at the coal a little bit. Okay, so they have the Lucia, their Hanzo, Ana, Junk, tanks. So, okay. Mm-hmm. coal was okay. If you guys could have survived without it, with the dragon, I think you could have. But what was your resources at? I think you were fine.
Caught me so off guard with this charge.
You are Ben. I would say a little bit early, but that's me being super nitpicky just because they dragons. And we can't really follow up on any of your cold damage easily. I'm fine with who you're targeting. You're playing a bit aggro for my taste because they still have the Hanzo who can dink you. Although you are a hard target to hit, but it's still risky. Or getting slept, but she probably won't use sleep on you. Yeah, and honestly, if I were like if we were the defending team here, like Beach would just shatter you. I'm confident that he would, and if he didn't, I would probably tell him to. Because they could have
Yeah.
won this with just Shatter and the Dragon, and instead they used Tire and Nano as well.
Well, look from my perspective. Watch how I get charged here. I get fucking like one tapped.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, that's unlucky. Wonder if he did like a...
I got like vacuumed into it too. Wait, there's like a ledge there too. Oh no, he went around it. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it was just a little jump charge that I wanted to look at. I wanted to see if he... So that's like a practical use of like the little jump charge. Getting around objects and starting your animation as you're midair.
Yeah.
Rather than... Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I had charge too to counter, and I don't think that would have mattered either. I probably would have got one tapped by the tire even if I counter charged. But I was out of position.
Yeah. All a bit scattered at this point. Chance, what are you doing down here?
What the fuck?
Oh, I think he just got booped.
He did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got yeeted from the map because. And then the guy tried giving me an explanation. I know why I got booped that far. It's because of how fast I was moving. And he sent me.
He tried to
further.
explain that to you?
Yeah, dude, he goes, well, the boot momentum and dude, I was like...
Oh, yeah, I fucking remember that.
I was like, bro, what?
Dude, it was more than 4 words and I just fucking ignored it.
Did you
I typed out a whole
Need an
paragraph.
explanation.
did you give him like a question mark in chat or something?
No! I just said, why on earth is boot ever that far? And then he gave, like, it was just a, like, I'm tilted type of thing.
Yeah.
And he gave me, he tilted me even more. I literally was about to type, I was literally about to say, are you fucking serious?
Yeah.
But then, like, you know, I wasn't really that tilted until the end of the map. You'll see, I got caught on the fucking wall, and it kept sliding me down, so I kept trying to get back up, and I got headshot by Hanzo, and we lost the round.
Unfortunate. Okay. That's another... Okay.
Hooligan comes back.
Another thing I wanted to bring up, when we're playing against a Rein Zarya comp, it's super important that you guys punish their Zarya. Okay? So if she's ever away from her Rein, or not with her team, you guys can punish her super hard. Same goes for like Sigma too. Both are very easily like punished, right? Especially if Zarya doesn't have her bubble, but even if she does, you can pull boop her or you can punch her, and you can burst her down very quickly if she's out of position. Okay, so if she doesn't have bubble and she's off angling, fucking punish her hard because she shouldn't be doing that shit. And if she does have bubble, well, we can look to force it out pretty quickly, and that gives us a resource advantage. So look for off tanks who are off angling and feeding. Right rotation. Yeah. At this point, I would suggest like swapping to like Orisa Sig or Orisa Diva or something. Something that is more mobility, or like Rhine Diva. It's gonna
Yeah,
allow you to
after
push in
Like
quicker.
Run Diva here.
after the round, we realized Diva's just like 10 times better against spam.
Yeah,
We're just on Diva.
yeah. Well, Sig and Diva are really powerful because they're very strong in rotation, right? Like that's one of the reasons why they're picked so fucking much over other off tanks. So yeah. Mm. They're controlling outside. Yeah. Okay. Bum, bum, bum.
So for that round, would you just say we were just on the wrong comp
Yeah, I would say so.
for the most part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's rough. Control is rough. If you don't have the right comp or the right role, it can seriously fuck you over for the rest of the map. It makes your job 10 times harder because you're playing against like a positional advantage, and the enemy team has a huge alt economy advantage on you as well. So just talk. That's why I didn't like. That's why I like focus on like the fundamentals and like those concepts and things because they'll be applicable over every map, and it's something we can always work on. So, we're doing the Far Tracer. Okay. Okay. I want to explain this other comp thing. So sometimes you'll see people run like uh, Genji instead of the Pharah, or they'll run like Tracer Sombra or some variant that doesn't involve the Pharah. Um, the Pharah is meant to play slower, obviously, and if you're playing the faster pace comp, you're gonna look to engage a lot sooner, right? So you can engage on their Mega, basically, or on their bridge, right? Because if you allow them to sit up here, get a couple rockets in, then they'll be at an advantage. Okay. So if we're playing against a faster paced comp, understanding like, okay, we can play a little bit slower. We want to make sure that our honor isn't getting like absolutely fucked instantly, right? So we're kind of looking out for that. And the Pharah is better versus things like the Brawl. So on a map like this, or Night Market, or Oasis, or some of the Oasis maps, Pharah Tracer is good because you can transition to like Pharah Tracer is still okay versus the Brawl, or you can do like Pharah Sombra, which is decent. Um, or you can transition to the Tracer Genji or like the Tracer Sombra or something if you're playing versus another dive. So if it was the mirror matches with the Pharah, and we're obviously not getting value with the Pharah, then we can swap to something that's like the Sombra Tracer and play faster onto their backline, and look to win with that. So that's a way that you can counter the Pharah. So the comp change plus like your playstyle and your tempo change, right? But the Pharah gives you lots of options. If you do play against the dive, you have um, a decent comp. But also, if they're playing like a brawl or some variant, you still have some. It's better than playing like Tracer Genji or Tracer Sombra into the brawl. So that's the reasoning for the like the Pharah and shit. So yeah. Why are we so passive? Okay, we want to
They're
avoid.
trying to scout.
Yeah, but we still want to avoid this as much as possible, right? Because now they basically have defender's advantage, even though it's first fight, right? So we want to get up here, take this pillar as soon as possible, basically. Um, Tracer's going to control this flank or control point, which gives us nice pressure there, right? So if we're controlling like the courtyard area, and they try to contest us, then we have Tracer like pelt them from this angle, and then we have this angle, right? Also, by taking more space, we're actually protecting our supports, right? and make it harder for the enemy to actually jump onto us. Okay, so on neutral fights, we need to be trying to neutral, or when we're defending, we need to make sure that we're taking as much space as possible, right? Even if we don't necessarily need it, like to execute a win condition, just forcing them to push you guys out, to flush you guys out of that space with time and resources is super important. Okay. So Abyss, just so you are aware, this Ana is out of position. Okay. So your positioning would either be inside of dojo, like in the doorway, right?
Or like
Or
by
back
the
here.
table.
Yeah, or back here on this corner, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about that positioning a little bit. So if you're on this back corner, so let's watch, so see where we start from and see where we land with our movement. I'm gonna slow this down a little bit. Right, so jump from bridge, basically land pillar, right? So if Anna's back here, she's not gonna get pressured by the dive, right? We wanna create space for Anna so that she is more than one jump away from the enemy tanks, dive tanks, right? That's Anna, Zen, Widow, Hanzo, Ashe, any long range soldier at times, like soldier like Hanamura, second or some shit. Um, Stuff like that is super important, and something that kind of goes with the aggressive space taking, right? Um, and then you also have the cover from that. If you're playing inside, you have more protection from the Pharah, and you are closer for them to pressure you, but because lots of tracers will go to point, uncontrolled point first over dojo, this means that you are safer from the tracer. So you're safer from the Pharah and the tracer. You are at more risk from the dive tanks, but your team can peel for you, and the dive tanks aren't going to burst you. And if they try to push you inside the dojo, then they get fucked, right? So
Yeah.
did you guys do this the other day where you tried to push into dojo?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And I think we mentioned that, right? So we don't want to
Yeah.
put ourselves into that position because our tanks are not going to get the support they need in there. Um, so those are
Yeah,
why you play in those two positions.
we ended up taking a fight in there, and we ended up winning too, but it was only because we were ahead by like 2 people, I think.
Yeah, before that, yeah. Yeah, when you use our up advantages, so players or resources or whatever, you can afford to take more risks, and because you'll get away with more stuff, basically.
There
I'm
was
gonna
this
can't
one
punish
fight that was an absolute clusterfuck.
you.
Yeah, you'll see it when it happens.
I know exactly what fight you're talking about, and I had no idea what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, I was just like following the Anna the entire time.
Dude, playing Mercy is so fucking difficult. I don't know what anything is happening because I gotta pay attention to fucking Farah.
Well, ideally, you should be like attached to Fart and then using that to like look around,
Well,
right? You don't
yeah,
need to
I
look
get
at her.
that, but then like
You're probably the key scouter, to be honest.
Yeah.
I get lost most of the time because sometimes my attention span with Mercy is not that good.
Okay. Well,
But I'm working on it.
TBD.
I'm working on it.
let's simplify it a little bit for you. So you are scouting when you are on the Farah. What you need to be looking for is potential threats. So if they have a widow or dive targets, those are the two
Find the
main
bad
things.
guys.
Yeah, those are the those are the two main things that you should be looking for right now. After we get that down pat, and like after you're like really good with that, then we can look at expanding that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to fix my fucking stand.
Sounds like you're beefing.
Dude, I'm muting myself.
And we should chase that monkey. Awesome.
Yeah, and then I kind of
Yeah.
get clapped.
Yeah. Where's Tube? Cube should
Cuba's peeling for our far right because their diva was on our, I think.
Diva back there. Did you just use boosters? I think he did, yeah.
Oh,
So that's unfortunate.
but I should I have really chased, to be honest? Like,
Let's
I
see.
didn't know he was off cooldown. I probably should have asked or something. Guess we end up getting picked one more in Rebecca.
I think you should. I think that's actually a fine trade.
Okay.
Because it gives us more space and we should have been more aggressive with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I guess
And
it's Winston, right?
yeah, it's Winston, and Winston's typically die first anyway in dive.
Yep.
Like it's Winston and Ana; those are the two that die, right? But we actually have a health advantage because their diva just had to fly back, right? So we have a health advantage overall, and you've just created space to allow us to push through the choke a bit more, right? So we should be able to snowball that lead with our Chaser and our Ferrara. Because as far as their Chaser could be more on point, but I think she was.
I feel like Godborn should be forcing point here. Instead of like playing on the outskirts.
Yeah, he should have been on point. Yeah.
Okay.
And at this point, making sure that you guys are shooting the Ana or the Hanzo too, right? Like, even though the Diva's low, she's getting double pocketed. Alright. Like, the Ana and their Hanzo are both like really shitty positioning and they're both easily pressured. So, I like how both Winstons are just,
They're chilling next to each other.
yeah, they're just vibing.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it's an okay trade. Like, ideally, Tube would have had boosters and then would have helped you with DM, but a little bit unfortunate timing. So, I won't nitpick it too much. You please tell me you guys were like screaming that someone was
I
purple.
screamed Hanzo one, and I don't think Beach was back yet, so he couldn't.
Yeah, I was still walking back.
Okay.
Or if he was back, he didn't have jump.
Yeah, I don't think you did. You just got back or something. Yeah, that's okay.
And then I jump in by myself.
Do you have Primo?
Oh yeah,
So it's fine.
I got nano.
Yeah, so deep dives are always fine if you're getting nano or you have primal. So if you see an enemy Winston do that, assume he's getting nano or some sort of like support alt, or he is primal, right? And if you
Okay.
have any of those, like if you have a support alt that's gonna back you up or you're gonna primal, then deep dives are totally fine, right?
Me and Monkey were equal in ult charge until I got nanoed,
Yeah.
and then I pretty much instantly got primal.
Did I tell you to go more aggressive with primal, like that you could like go solo people, or is that a different main tank? I can't remember.
I don't think you told me that, but I usually chase like a singular person, and then I
Yeah.
usually juggle the support.
Yeah. Yeah, but if they have like Primal's actually like really good. So if we think about the concept we are talking about how we want to play more than one jump away, right? Primal actually just like totally is like fuck that, right?
Yeah.
So it's actually really powerful in some senses in a dive mirror. So it allows you just go for those deep dives to pressure their backline or to pressure a DPS like a long range DPS or whatever. And yeah, you usually do it. So I just couldn't remember if it was you or someone else. Best, you're fine. There's primal. Why do we use bomb? What was bomb used for? I need to check that.
I think he might have just gotten DMAC and needed the bomb to rematch.
Well, I think he just bombed.
Uh,
Oh no,
got,
he took the
that's
damage.
pretty much a DMAC. Yeah, that's fine. He popped a little bit early, which just means that he's not city and mech. for as long, so he's actually being more impactful for a longer period of time. Because he knew he was gonna get max D-max, so I'm totally fine with that. I don't know if that was intentional, but it is something that Diva players can do.
It's an AD bomb.
Yeah,
One wound.
they were all like 1 HP. Let's look at target priority a little bit.
I feel like our first map target priority was kind of shit.
So Tube goes for Ana, who is 1. So does Beach. You guys kill her. You guys go for the monkey. Chance, why are you back here?
Cause Zebra died to
Dragon
Blade.
Blade. Why was he
and
over
I was.
here?
Well, he wasn't. I started floating away, but I could still heal where Zebra was, and then he died to Blade, and I started drifting back. So the Genji, if he dashed for me, he wouldn't have a dash, and he would just fall off the map.
Hmm.
And then look who's sitting right next to me. Abyss is right there. I think that's Abyss, or is that
That's
Godbone?
It's Godbone.
Okay, well someone's sitting right there, and I noticed that. So if he dashed for me, I fly to Godbone, but I ended up dying to Hanzo. So
Yeah.
I had it all played out in my head, but the Genji did dash towards me, and I got headshotted by Hanzo.
Yeah, I was more just curious, like, why you were over there, like, how you got there. No,
Yeah,
it's fine.
no, there's a nano blade.
You know, every time I think that about Chance, there'd be the normal fight going on, and then I'll look over, and then Chance will be like
halfway
over there.
across
I'm
the
like,
map,
how the
and the
fuck
enemy's
did he
spawn.
get over there?
You should watch me when I play Lucio. That happens a lot.
Are we winning this?
No.
No, because they beat.
Uh,
Down one.
It was actually winnable until they beat it, but
We were down two. We
and
were
they're
down
anti-healed too.
yeah.
Baby Diva was anti-healed.
Pretty good, like, eco push, all said and done. You got a lot of ults that they had to commit ults to win the fight, so
Yeah, they almost
it's
have
okay.
nothing now.
It's okay. And we have Valk Barrage. Yep, they have nothing. Alright. This just means
Ever
we...
use Barrage?
I am not sure. But going into this fight...
No, we did, but I think at the end.
Going into this fight, I would say we use Valk to go super aggro. That's what I would say. Whether you guys do it or not, totally different question. Because you guys might Valk Barrage, which is probably... no. It's not optimal to start at a fight with. Barrage is going to
Both
be...
ults?
What?
Are you saying not optimal to use both ults or one at a time?
It's not optimal to start a fight with Barrage.
Okay.
And it's especially
I
not
normally-
optimal to use them both
I
at the same
normally
time.
start the fight. I normally start the fight with Valk,
Yeah. Which is good.
but I don't remember what happens here. Oh, never mind. I Valk and die.
That was Be the Valiant. What the fuck?
Yeah, man. Hero bands are wild. Okay, if you guys are going Whiterun, then Godbun should be here. And someone should probably tell Abyss.
Yeah, I end up rotating over, but
It's kind of
What?
it's
Where
kind
is
of
he?
late. Abyss is on
Oh,
bridge still.
I'm main. I didn't realize you guys said to go left, or if even anyone said to go left. So I was
I
still
think
main.
everyone just started drifting towards left.
I said White Room.
Okay.
Oh, I must have not been paying attention. I kind of own their tracer, to be honest.
Okay. So so I just said Barrage wasn't optimal to start a fight. Why was that Barrage okay?
Monkey was off cooldown. Diva didn't have DM.
Yeah.
Well, also because someone's hacked right there, isn't there?
We don't have a Sombra.
What?
Oh, what? There was a hacked animation on my screen.
No, that someone was slept.
There was a purple, if that's what you're referring to.
No.
Someone's anti.
Wait, keep going. Keep going.
Also,
They were slept. You're looking at someone being slept.
No, like, well, okay, then maybe it was just my screen. It looked like Monkey was hacked.
okay. It's okay because they've used resources, right? So they don't have as much to actually punish our far. So the longer a fight goes on, the less resources teams have, or tanks and supports have mainly, which means the less resources to shut down DPS. Which is why things like Reaper Ult are very effective mid-fight, but they're kind of weak to start a fight off with, right? And since Far Alt puts her stationary position in a very risky position, it's often not safe to barrage at the start of a fight because they have the ability to shut you down, and you're in a very like exposed position, and it's very easy to get yourself killed, right? But because they've used some resources already, and because we have taken the aggro, because Goblin's over here, forcing Diva's attention for a second, then she turned back, and because Beach has jumped in and drawn their attention to him, their attention and their resources, right? I mean, attention is a resource, if you guys haven't heard that, but that's a very common thing for coaches to say. Um,
Yeah.
but I like differentiating the two because people don't immediately assume they're the same. But even though they are, it doesn't matter. We've drawn their attention and their resources so that Farah has a better chance to survive and actually get value from this brush. So that is why it's good, which is basically what you guys said. So awesome. And that Valk probably should have been earlier, because like it.
Have Valk?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you did.
Yeah, you had Valk since the start.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. This first map was just kind of shit for me.
That's okay.
No, you just did it.
Nope. And this is why I typically don't like do first maps, because they can be shit, and they're not like indicative of what a team can actually do, or the normal playstyles of a player. So that's why I don't typically do them, but since it's an OD game, you guys wanted to go over this one. Yeah, but the fight's already won into Valk. It'd be much better to Valk on Beach's engage on his jump. So, yep.
Yeah, you should watch my POV. I kind of kited pretty well.
Right here? For this
Or no,
next fight
like
or the last
the
one?
last fight.
Let's do a bit before that.
Looks like a 1v1 to me. That's pretty good, yeah.
Yep, it's good. Far's over there. Tracer's in dojo, that's fine.
Is this the clusterfuck you were talking about?
It might be.
Where everyone jumps on top of you?
Well, this is, Beach and Tube should be on bridge here. Like they should be here. If one of them wants to like poke here, that's fine, but like at
I don't
least
know
one
why
tank,
Tube is standing on point.
at least one of you guys needs to be here on bridge, right? Because we want to limit this jump, right?
Yeah.
Or if he does get the jump off, we want to make sure that we're in a position to cut off his heals, and that he had to like go through us, so he had to take a poke to actually make that jump, right? Right? Because if Beach, if you're just positioned here, this is easy, just like bubble and then jump back, right? Cut off his heals, and then you're peeling, right? Or Tube could be saying like on pillar. That way, when Winston does jump, he's in a position to boop him away, so he fucks up his jump, and he's creating like that second layer of protection for Abyss. And he can rotate to point if someone's on pressuring point. He can rotate into dojo. He can come up to bridge and help harass them, right? He's in a position to where he can do anything, right? So
I have a proposition.
what's up?
How about we dive them? We start diving them where they are right now. Like,
Yeah, that's fine.
I feel like that's a much better. Like, I started doing that a little bit more later into the game,
Mm-hmm.
kind of rolling them because of that. And I don't really like to take fights in that main area. Like,
Yep.
right at point. I feel like be just like 50-50. Whereas if we're fighting like right where that Ana is, I feel like that's huge.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you look at their comp, it makes a lot of sense for us to fight there. Hmm. Yep. But a lot of that depends on the comp stuff, right? It's not just,
Yeah, that's true too.
right? Like engaging on the bridge is fine and all, but you have to make sure that they can't punish you for like doing that. Or we've talked about like engaging over here before, right?
Yep.
Right. So making sure that they can't punish you like if they're over there or on whatever comp they are, right? So it's more comp dependent. But yeah, in this case, very good idea. They have the On and the Hans that are diveable, and the Genji isn't going to be able to peel very much versus like a full out dive. Right, so
Well,
you
I
guys
think
can
that's the
burst them
reason I'm
down.
not picked up as much. Is because I'm aiming to jump directly over the top here and jump on the Ana.
Hmm. Well, if that's the case, then you guys need to be doing it way sooner.
Yep.
Like way sooner. Like as soon as they basically like
This one was.
touch the rock, right? As soon as they like pass the rock in the tree, that's when you're going. Right. So
Oh no, this was the fight inside the. Can't even tell what the fuck is going on.
good boobs. Why the fuck was there Ana there? Yeah.
Like the whole fight just happened in that one corner.
Oh, so that was the clusterfuck.
Yeah. So this is one of those examples where Chance should be like thinking about threats or like scouting, right?
Where am I at?
It doesn't matter where you're at. It's just they swapped to Widow,
Oh no, I
right?
called that out. I called they had Widow.
Yeah, I assumed
And
you
then
did.
they called the Hanzo. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's it's just an example of like tracking the threat, right?
Yeah, I knew that because as soon as they swapped to Widow, the first shot was taken and it like I think it either hit Zebra or it missed me, and then I called it because I
Yeah,
wasn't. And then I called. They went back to Hanzo.
yeah. But as soon as the fight is lost or someone's dead, like one of their DPS is dead, you should be like thinking about are they gonna swap to Widow? Like what are the potential threats at this point, right? And
Okay.
that's one of those things that you should be scouting, right? So threats and diveable people, right? Those are the two things we're gonna focus on. But yeah, very good engage. I think we could have only used one tank ult to optimize ult economy, but that's still fine-ish.
Can you go back and watch that again? I think I primal because I got low.
Yeah,
I don't remember
probably.
because I wasn't in an LS of Abyss. That was my fault though.
So we're here, we hit a nade.
Oh no, I
No,
just
you
used. I
just,
called for primal bomb. That's what it was.
yeah. And you probably wanted to go secure a kill with Primal after you use your jump. Um, but yeah, you guys could have just won that with bomb.
Fuck, that Ana was behind me with
Yeah,
like 1 HP.
yep. What you guys actually did was really fucking nice. So you jumped back here, you cut off their. So if someone's playing back here, so like if they're on an Ispan back here, you cut her off, right? But you also cut off their retreat. So you're
Yep.
basically pinching them. So it's really nice play, right? So
Yeah, a lot of supports I find just sit in the doorway when people are crossing, so
yeah,
I put my bubble there.
yep. Nope, but that's great play other than the ult economy using Primal. Yeah. At this point, you guys should be calling that they have Nano Blade and they have an ult advantage, right? so that means you're gonna still want to take this fight here. But also Abyss is gonna be looking to farm up Nano as fast as possible, right? So if we can get him a couple shots, so there's this angle where he might be able to get a couple shots off, or if we just play aggro to take a couple, a little bit poke for him, so he gets Nano, right?
I feel like if we engaged on this super early, we could just like completely rule out them
Yep.
being able to nano blade.
Yep. What you do when you're in alt disadvantage is like literally the best play, if possible, is to just go stupid aggro on them, right? Take a fight where they can't engage onto you, or they're like so dumbfounded that you would even like try to engage them there, right? And that will either force out more ults. Like the worst that can happen is they win and they use the same ults, right? The best possible situation is you guys win and you force out their win condition plus some more, right? Because you're engaging, you're taking them by surprise, then there's more chance that they're going to use abilities recklessly, and so it's not going to be as efficient or optimized, and they'll be more easily persuaded, let's say, to use their ultimates. So, yeah, it's a great play, especially if the enemy has a Sombra or an EMP. Still a very good play, especially a very good play. But yeah, you guys are late on doing it again. Yeah. So, why were you guys late twice? Was it a lack of scouting, or you weren't sure when to start the jump? What was it? Or did you guys just not call to go aggressive this time? Do you remember?
I think I was looking to peel um, for the Genji blade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember.
Okay, that's fine. Um, okay. But, think about this. We don't have a defensive ult. We are not going to be able to outpeel the damage that a nano blade plus whatever damage their tanks and their Hanzo put in. We're not going to be able to peel that, right? So the best way that we can stop them from getting that damage is to not even let them initiate their dive.
Yes.
Right? So I think we're all in agreement on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's still a consistent problem, maybe there's like a scouting or like a unsure of like when to start your dive or whatever, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we can definitely look to engage before bridge on this point. Okay, especially if you guys are at alt, any kind of alt disadvantage, feel free to engage early. Like I will not, even if it's like kind of stupid, I will not blame you guys for it. Right?
The first time we engaged, and I had that first bubble and chased the Ana down, that felt really good. So
Yeah.
Here's Aiden.
Yeah, I got cut. My bad. I was kind of doing homework
It's all good.
that I totally forgot about the time.
And then Oasis. I am going to get water real quick. Well, I'm just let it play, and we'll eventually get there.
You didn't put the first one, Chance. You asshole. You didn't put the first. You didn't give him the first map. Awesome.
Yeah, because I said it was really bad, and then I gave him the first map anyway.
Oh,
Because
okay.
he asked for it. Wait, Beach, did you record or stream it?
No.
Okay, so I was
I
right.
needed
with
like
that
full
call.
force. So when I think it's gonna be slightly challenging, I might stream. It's too distracting.
I was gonna say because he asked for comms. I said, yeah, I did. I was on a different computer because I wasn't on mine.
Oh, I recorded.
Oh,
I
did you?
uploaded though.
If you end up uploading it, could I have the link?
Sure.
Thank you, Bugs.
I have to listen to an ungodly number of music and write and answer questions about them.
Okay.
Fucking homework.
Why are you late, Tube?
Dude, I've been doing homework.
Not
No.
in the
No,
game,
just talk about
dummy.
the fight, bro.
The
I'm
fight.
sorry.
Fuck. As soon as I said it, I was like, oh fuck, he's gonna. Okay.
Yeah.
Why are you late? Oh, you just didn't use boosters at spawn. You gotta do
I
that.
had to get chance because he got left behind.
Oh,
We
did he?
sped out.
Alright.
Oh yeah, he flew up so I can fly to him and then glide over to the Pharah.
Okay. Well. I'm actually very surprised that they gave up high ground like that.
Yeah.
Like, both their tanks just, like, dropped. That's very odd.
They. Where did the Winston go?
They went for someone else. He's
Oh,
jumping.
he's
He's
moving.
jumping back up there now, but like they both dropped, and the Genji should have been there too. So realistically, like Beach should have like died or been forced like hard out. But I don't know. They decided to drop. They're wimps. Okay. But again, neutral fight. Super important that we take as much space as possible, right? So getting on top of the high ground gives us the most space possible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Should I just like maintain that spot up there and fucking zap them from the high ground, if I instead of just like running in circles around the point?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can control the high ground, that's way better because it sets you up for
I was
more
thinking
dives.
like if I started jumping and then landing on them and like I was like jump, hit them with the Winston, land the melee and the
Mhm.
like pretty much just slam them with everything at the same time. It'd be more value, but probably be more valuable just to stay on high ground.
So if you are staging your setting up or you're poking, kind of like in those sorts of stages, then you want to put the high ground. If you guys are committing to something because you see an opportunity, like a direct or a hack or a nade, or someone's low or someone or Mori doesn't have fade or whatever it is, or you guys just want to go deep and pressure something, then using your jump and like getting that combo off is gonna be better, right? Um, but by controlling the high ground, you make it harder for them to set up. And ideally, you want your Ana to be able to like rotate onto the high ground, right? So again, going back to that idea of like you are taking up as much space and controlling like high grounds and these sorts of things, so that it's harder for the enemy to jump on your Ana. And if they do jump on your Ana, well then you can still jump back onto them and hit them with a combo, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You can do a coast jump,
Yeah.
or are you under? Oh, you're under. Okay.
Oh, what the
Yeah,
hell?
I just wanted to see where everyone was.
Okay.
Max,
Mhm.
Zebra told me to go Moira. I don't know if it was the right play because I don't think I did anything as Moira that I couldn't have done as Ana. And
Mm,
if anything, I feel like with peel, I feel like Ana's probably better.
Well, they didn't really pressure you the first fight, anyways, like at all.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like watching this team play, you probably could have gotten away with Ghana. If if we played a little bit better. Um, and they didn't seem to particularly like to punish you. Um, but comp-wise, in ideal situations, if we do like he might have felt that he wasn't gonna get value with the Pharah because they can play like that faster paced comp, the faster paced dive that I was talking about, like at the very beginning. Because they're running the Tracer Genji. Um, and that he could have got more value on Sombra, which means that you need to be able to survive more on your own. Because
Well, he told me to go Moira before
yeah,
he went Sombra.
before we went Sombra.
Like
Yeah.
Godwin told him to go to Sombra, but like right when I died, he told me to go to Moira. So there's like a big gap. I don't think he was thinking about it that much, to be honest with you.
Maybe not.
I think he just saw me die and told me to go Moira.
um, hmm. Yeah. So typically, yeah. So there's the fast-paced dive thing, but also when you play Sombra Tracer, typically Moira is more played with it because she's more independent, and it becomes six-man dive, right? As opposed to like six-man dive is basically with Moira because you can go all out aggression, and you don't need to worry too much about peeling, and you're more focused on your aggression, right? And taking advantage of opportunities created by hacks or people who are low or just like hard pressured by Tracer and Sombra. Um, so typically Moira works better with the Tracer Sombra. Um, yeah, so like comp wise it's better I think, but if they're not pressuring you and we have control of point, I think Ana is better, right? But we need to take control of point for that to begin with, and we don't want to rely on the enemy team fucking up for being stupid for a game plan, right? Or for improvement. So Moira's fine. Um, yeah, it's like the greedy support. Not Lucio Moira isn't the greedy support lamp, but like Ana Zen is a super greedy backline, and if you can get away with it, it's a lot of value for like certain maps and certain situations. But it's much easier to punish, which is why it's not played as much. Like especially like right now, right? So that's what it comes down to. Like how much greed can you get without getting punished, right? And Moira is just like 10 times harder to punish. So that's what it comes down to. It's really important that we don't plan around enemy mistakes, right? We want to force mistakes, not wait for them to happen. I don't know if I like Tracer Storm on this map as much as the other ones, though. Doesn't really matter. Whatever. Um. You jump there. Super's there. The chance is there. So you're jumping too early, Beach.
Yeah,
We
I was just
want,
gonna do that.
yeah, Tracer at least needs to be like in the arches or in the halls, and like out of.
Did I jump where Tube Sock was from?
No, you jump from you were under here,
Oh yeah,
right?
that
And you
makes
came
sense.
and jumped up. Um, right? Because we want Tracer to be able to like be on the stairs by the time like you're landing, so we get that
Okay.
pinch and then we get that flank off, and then Tube is also like, yeah, Tube needs to be here, and it kind of just looks like his boosters weren't cooled down or something, or maybe he just didn't realize you were going. Let's see. Has boosters.
Yeah, I didn't really call it until I already jumped. Like I was like, I'm going in now, and I jumped.
Yeah, we were trying to plan something, and then he just goes, "I'm going in."
Okay. Yeah, but a little bit too aggressive. Wait for our Sombra, Tracer, and Diva to be in a better position to support you on that dive. And what I was asking earlier is if you're going for a coast dive, so you can make this jump, and teams don't expect it, and it cuts out of the west really nicely.
So I was worried I was gonna get fucking booped.
Booped. Yeah, yeah. That's why it's
'Cause
important that
I've tried that before, and
it's risky. It is. Um, it's one of those greedy plays because if you can force them to look, like, so if they're looking over here and like tube is diving in like this, right, and then we
oh,
have
you
our
force them to look.
and then tracers here, and then we have monkey as well coming from this angle, like that's really powerful, right? Getting those multiple angles, especially on dive. Um, but it is greedier and it's easier to punish. So
Yeah, there's nothing that pisses me off more than jumping and then getting pushed off the map before I even touch the ground.
yeah. Abyss, you should be trying to rotate into like one of the halls so that you can heal without getting your fade forced, because you did have to fade there. Um, so like for example, this position, a position where you can like heal tube sock, but the angle that the enemies have on you is like non-existent unless they swing out or they look to go on you, right? So cutting off that angle to the enemy while still keeping your angles to your teammates, something you can look at and work on. Oh, yeah, guys, if there's a question, if you have a question, please fucking stop me, please. Or if you have me if I need to explain something in further depth.
Okay.
This translocator was on cooldown. They would have killed him anyway. Okay. Alt economy. Tank Alt's Pulse versus Tank Alt's Pulse Blade Beat. Mm-hmm.
I feel like what happened all the time on this map was their Genji or Tracer would go on me, force my fade, and then the other one of the DPS would go on me to kill me.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're playing versus the Moira, you need someone to force out the fade, whether that's with like a nade, a direct, like a body shot, just like general pressure from a tank or from a DPS, like Genji or Tracer. And then they'll commit to the dive. But like that's what you guys should be looking to do against Moira players. Especially with a Tracer Sombra, you can do that really well. That's why the angle thing I was mentioning, like being able to cut off the enemy's angles on you, while still being able to heal your teammates while being in cover is super important, right? Because if you're in cover and you're cutting around like corners and stuff, then you're denying the amount of time that you're buying yourself more time so that you have fade later on, right? And that leaves your team more time to peel for you and to punish someone, right? So let's watch your positioning going into this fight then. Hmm. That's last fight. You guys gonna lose this?
Yeah, we lose.
Okay. So something to look at. It wasn't like super obvious there. I don't know how consistent it is, but you were chasing your teammates slightly to heal them. And remember that your range on heal is 20 meters. Um, so you do have more range than you seem. And you, like as a flex support, whether you're playing Zen on or Moira or whatever you end up playing, you shouldn't be like chasing your teammates down to heal them, right? You have range, so use it, right? So keep an eye on that to make sure that you're not like chasing your teammates when you don't actually need to, because sometimes they'll
Was
put
my health
supports.
low when I faded? Or am I
Yeah,
low?
you were low when you faded, and I don't. I'm just saying it because it might be a recurring thing. I need to watch another fight, which is why I asked if you guys lost this fight.
Oh, okay.
So we'll watch it going into the other fights. Um, but it is something that flex supports tend to do. Like it's a very common like bad habit to have. And even if it's not like all the time, they'll do it like 2 times a map or something, and that can lead them to like 1 death, which is a lot, right? So, um, if that chasing leads to using sleep early or fade early, like that's a big deal, right? So we'll just keep an eye on that to make sure that's not a habit that you have. But that is another potential problem or reason that like fade's getting forced early or you're getting punished more. So like the angles and then chasing are probably your two most likely things for why fade's getting pressured out early or you have to use it early and you were dying. Those are the two most likely culprits.
Alright.
Bum, bum, bum. Hey Tube, do you wait for other people to commit? So like, do you wait for the Winston to dive your Winston to boost her in?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Because it kind of looked like you waited for like someone to actually go pressure Beach to go do this. Um, and that's fine in most situations, but if we are like neutral fight and we want to take the high ground, you just need to get up here as soon as possible. Okay.
Alright.
So if you're peeling or whatever we're set up, then that's totally fine. But if we need to take space, just get there as soon as possible and don't worry about waiting for someone else to commit. Also, you're kind of flashing DM around, even though we have bubble, and you're not really protecting anyone. So watch your DM usage, right? So we mentioned it like earlier, um, about like tank abilities, making sure that we're not overlapping them too much, and that was mainly in Brawl. But the same thing applies for when Winston has a bubble up. So making sure that you're not DMing if you don't have to, and you're not just like flashing it randomly and using DM in poor situations. Okay. And you don't really need it. Like nothing happens where you absolutely need it, but eventually sometime it will, and then you won't have DM usage and you'll get punished for it. Okay. So DM usage is always a habit that you should be thinking about. Like like DM is one of those things that off tank players should always be thinking about. It's like support players in positioning, right? And DPS players is always like timing and angles. To me, those are two big things that DPS players need to work on. But um, if you're not sure what you should be like looking at as like an off tank player or as playing D.Va, look at your DM usage. Okay. Chance, how did you die here? And then D.Va pressures you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Actually, that there is why it's super important to take this high ground as fast as possible.
I'm muted. I was saying the Tracer came up and then the Diva started pressuring me, but I started calling that like I needed help, and then you know,
Mm.
not saying that anyone didn't help me. Not even Zebra didn't even look over at me. He's kind of I'm like dead weight to him.
Mm. Oh, okay.
Their team, like every chance that they got, they punished me being out of like position.
Yeah. Win together. How long has this been going? Yeah, I'm gonna try and get through these maps like without stopping too much, because we have been going for an hour and 20 minutes now,
Okay.
and I don't want to. I don't want to overload you guys or keep you too long.
Is it sped up?
No?
Oh, it looked like it was at like 1.25 or something.
Yep.
Overwatch be like that.
Yeah. No, watching it, it's like super fast, but like when you're in game, it does not seem that fast.
What?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
Overwatch.
Sorry, I'm like.
it's all good. It's one of the reasons why this is gonna be recorded, so you guys can go back on it if you zoned out or missed a part of it or whatever. So guys, this is Control Center and Oasis. Oasis is fucking scrappy. Okay. Unlucky. Ooh. It's one of those rare beats where everything is like in sync. Can you guys hear it?
No.
Well, basically what happened is the Lucio's beat like pixel perfect in unison. So they're like echoing each other. It's really funny. Uh, yeah. When you hear voice lines double over like that, so it's super funny. Anyway, um, oh that.
Made that monkey just walk back into his bubble to get blown up.
Yeah, but he like he like hit the bomb midair and it like dropped or some shit. Or maybe this is how you use boosters.
It's fucking on.
It's probably just how you use boosters, and the end guy looked at it. But it looks like it
No,
like almost bounced.
no, it did hit the monkey and it stopped. His bomb would have went further.
Yeah,
It
a little bit
would have
further.
hit. You see Beach's dead body. It would have landed right on Beach's
Yeah.
dead body.
That's pretty funny.
Hit play, look at their monkey. He gets punched. He gets punched out of the bubble, then he walks back into it.
Ooh. Hmm.
Stu boost on it makes it look like Chance has. It makes it look like when you have Stu boost that it's in 1.25.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. How do? That's a tracer. Okay, that makes more sense.
Is there like echo in my background, or can you hear something in my background?
No.
You're good.
Okay, because I saw my mic going off and it started giving me like anxiety.
Yeah, I'm assuming this tracer turns. Yep. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep, I lose
Hmm.
all my health instantly.
Yep. Tracer is a tank buster in dive. So don't forget that. Okay. Um, Ideally, what would have been best is probably jumping high ground and tasering them from the top, or just holding the space for another second or two, and then going for a deep dive because you would have had primal, right? So we talked about how,
Yeah,
like
true.
deep diving and going super aggressive is fine if you have primal or you're gonna get support ults of some sort, right? But you didn't have primal and their tracer was there to burst you, right? So burst damage and peel are other things to take into account when going for those dives, right? Because if the tracer isn't here, this is fine, right? Because you'll get primal and they can't kill you. So, like, even if you didn't prop primal, they'd still struggle to kill you if the tracer wasn't here, right? So, figuring out like who's my threat, who can burst me, like how far can I go in without actually being like fully punished for it, right? Like those limits. So testing your limits, right? Super important, right? And knowing where your potential threats are. As a tank, you don't have many threats, but DPS are still dangerous. And you still need to be careful of them. Right? It's a nade. Bones over there. He's gonna kill baby. Oh, just double melee got bone. Monkey's down. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's better because you had primal. This one got stuck. Is there Winston? Ooh, they turned that back. Hold up. I have to watch this again.
I think I just watched Zebra miss 4 punches in a row.
So we lose Abyss. That's a big thing. Because he went for the Tracer instead. Yeah, he shouldn't have tried to chase the Tracer. Should have just gone for a secret punch onto the kill, onto one of the tanks. And we don't have Abyss because Abyss just died, and they popped Primal, and our Primal's out. Yeah, okay. So Lucio's a fine target. Zebra went on the wrong target. He should have stayed with you guys or looked to just punch a tank. Um, where did Goblin recall to? He's out there. Okay. You guys going on to the Lucio. You guys kill him. You're all low. It's unfortunate. And Goblin can't contest because both of them are there. Yeah. What you guys probably should have done is just taken a quick like soft reset, like over here, just healed up, or kited back to your guys' halls. Um, okay.
Oh yeah, dude. Look at that loincloth.
Yeah, but just doing like a little soft reset there probably would have been beneficial, right? Rather than committing because beach was so low. Right. And soft resets are important because they allow you to still maintain like some of the space that you've taken, right? While keeping you guys safe and ready for your next dive. So, alright. Chances over there. Doom's over there. And we don't really have all
I
save
was just
ultimately.
behind on beat.
Yeah, they have
If I would have built that faster, we probably could have had a better fight than that.
So why did you decide to go coast, Chance?
Hmm?
Why did you go left side, like through the coast and stuff?
Because in case we needed a quick touch. Like if we needed to regroup, right? I go this way, I touch, I come back out and I regroup. Because I can do that. Because I could touch there, right?
Yeah.
I could barely touch the point and I could still be on that wall and then I can instantly shoot back and just instantly wrap around to my team.
Okay.
Because I know a few rollouts around the hallway right here that I'm confident in. But seeing as it now, I probably should have been over with my team because people were taking poke and I probably could have broken.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a good idea, and I think what you did is good, but not in this case.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we had enough time on the clock to touch safely.
Yeah. Like we could have like Tube is on, and Tube can always do like touch and then booster over the wall back too, right? All you guys have to do is touch what 3 seconds before, so you guys can touch at like 98, and you'll have a couple extra seconds to work with, right? So I don't think in this case it's because our win condition right now is building alts to sustain through theirs and trying to get things like a bomb play or like a doom or a pulse play basically, right? Um, and what we need so our first win condition is to build alts and survive and shut down their win conditions, right? If their win condition is blade and coal, then how we beat that is through things like bomb and beat, right? So how you can help us win this fight the best is by building beat as fast as possible, which is going to involve you playing over here. So good, like what you thought of was good, and I think it's has its place. But I don't think it's needed in this case because we needed beat, and that was how we win this fight. So, and then Abyss got fade forced early. Let's look at that.
I think it's because Genji and Winston both went forward.
Yeah.
And at this point, we already knew Genji had blade, so they were probably trying to force it out of him. So then, as soon as he does it, Genji dashes towards Abyss. They nano him. He blades. He kills Abyss instantly.
Mm.
That's gone.
So the other thing, Abyss, about playing Flexible versus like dives, if you can limit their scouting information on you, or you can basically not peek and not show them where you are, their dives are going to be way less effective. Okay? So that's one of the other things to keep into account. So one dive away.
So should I have just like tried
Yeah, go ahead.
playing behind that wall on the right, and then like rotating toward chances right now?
Like through one of these walls.
Back here,
over by jump
and then went
pad.
around.
I'm over by jump pad right now.
At this point, yeah.
Listen, don't ask. I don't know how I know over there. I don't know.
In this situation, probably, yeah.
Because if he would have rotated towards me, Genji and Winston probably wouldn't have saw him.
Yep.
And Genji probably would have assumed I have beat, so they
probably. I don't know.
Nope, but this is definitely one of the plays you can make, right? So using that concept of limiting the sky information, rotating right side over to chance, because it gets you closer to the fight. It limits the information and also puts you in a position with chance so that you guys can protect each other. So that is good. Yep, that could be one of the possible plays. But yeah, just so being more than one jump away. So like a jump and a half away. Let's just use that as our saying. Um, and then limiting the information they can see to you, right? So another example, if you were playing Ana and we wanted to jump that high ground because they were holding that high ground, you would position somewhere like over here to begin with, and if they took poke, you'd heal them with unscope shots, and then they dive, and then you peek out over here as they like land, right? So you're limiting the information that they can, so it's hard for them to dive you, and you are far enough away that maybe like Winston can hit you with a max range jump here, or Tracy can hit you with like a double blink, but that's a lot of resources, right? So you want to make them use as many resources as possible, right? And your team, and if you time it right, your team is going to be taking attention away from you because they're going to be landing, and then you'll be showing, right? So those are all those concepts that we talked about for you specifically, and flex support stuff will help you stay alive. I don't think I've seen any examples of like chasing, but it's definitely something to still keep an eye on as we go into like our scrims this week and stuff to make sure that it's not right, because it could just be like maybe it's something you do on Ana but not on Moira, or vice versa, or maybe just because the matchup we were playing you didn't do it, or whatever it was. Um, but it is something you should definitely like make sure that you're not doing. And you guys just lose this, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything you guys want me to go over again, or you have questions that I want me to talk about more, or whatever?
No, I'm okay.
Did
Yeah, I'm good.
did you guys find this helpful?
Yes.
Yep.
Very.
Cool. That's good. Um, okay.
Thanks for going over it.
No worries. It's my job. Um, yeah. So I'll post this on YouTube, and then it'll be unlisted. So I'll just give you guys the link for that, and I will make a list of some major things that we talked about. But you guys will have access to the VOD, so you can always go over it again. So, yeah. Tomorrow we won't have anything. Tomorrow's just an off day, and then I'm finalizing the schedule with Zeph for this week. Um, yeah. If you guys need anything, just DM me. Glad you guys learned something. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
Later.